ShinRobjira.
Today we're going to be talking about the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Mothra from Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I got my copy of the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Mothra from INS Hobby. Links in the description below. Tell you more about that later. Let's move on. So in taking a look at the paint and detail for the main body of Mothra over here, I think it's pretty dang good. I'm really digging the fact that Hiya Toys went for a darker base coat and then went for a slightly brighter gray for all the wrinkles and all the little fur details and such. Granted, it's not the most highly detailed thing we've ever seen, but when it comes to a small figure such as this, and Mothra 2019 overall, I think it's pretty good. I guess the only complaint I would have when it comes to this kind of paint over here is just that the white over here on the wings kind of just trails off into a nothingness and really doesn't match the colors used here. That might be intentional or it might not be. It really doesn't bother me, but it would have been cool to see that white carry over onto the rest of the figure and give you a nice little, I see what they did there. Both sides of Mothra's legs over here will be painted, including her lower half and stinger, which actually looks like a stinger. Cool. And of course, the same thing will be going on with Mothra's arms over here, both her main arms and her titty arms. The lower half on the opposite side will have all of that amazing paint and details galore. And yes, they even painted her antennae, and yes, the paint on the wings over here is kind of scuffing off due to the swivel motion. Pretty much. The only downside here on the body when it comes to paint is mostly just going to be with the head. One eye is a little bit higher and the paint on her head is a little on the uneven side. But with a figure so small, I mean, can you really tell? Don't get me wrong, that's a wee bit of a bummer, and the same thing kind of happened with my Hiya Toys Rodan. But at least this Mothra actually looks like Mothra and not sporting the color job of that of a burnt, melted Snickers bar. Anyway, now we can move on to these wings, which are detailed and painted up like dreams come true. I really love how this looks. It's very much reminiscent of NECA's Mothra 2019 figure, save for the blue at the centers over here. That wasn't on the original release, and it was somewhat hinted at with the repaint, but that was more so for the aesthetic choice, so I'm not sure what Hiya we're going with here, but this is one of those situations where I really dig it. The same exact thing can be said for the under wings as well, on both sides, and I just really dig the fur-like detail on these. It's like they're not just solid pieces of plastic molded to look like wings. They actually have some character to them. And something I love even more is that that blue paint is going to match on the top wings and on the bottom wings over here. So you're not just getting blue on one side and then a whole barrenness of nothing. Same on the underside too. Good stuff, Hiya. So as far as paint and detail go for Mothra over here, I am going to reward her with 2 solid stars for paint and detail. The uneven paint on her head and the somewhat lopsided eyes are a bit of a bummer, I will say. So I'll tack on a half a star for the head paint as well. But again, from far away, you can barely even see the figure, but it's the principle of the matter, I know. Now, let's take a look at Articulation. Hold it. Huh? What? This video was brought to you by INS Hobby. INS Hobby is your one-stop shop for Hiya Toys Godzilla goodness. Looky here, they even have the new Hiya Burning Godzilla for a lovely discounted pre-ordered price, and wouldn't you know it, all of their pre-orders are like that. I've ordered from them a bunch as of late, and they've delivered my product in fantastic condition each and every single time. And so far, shipping has been very affordable. I imagine it'll change with the size of whatever you're ordering. You will have to pay at the time of pre-order, but if you're like me and are impatient as all get out, this is the store for you. And it's not just Godzilla, they've got a mess of other stuff too. Action figures, model kits, Transformers, wink wink, statue figures, they have it all. From anime figures to video game figures, Ultraman figures, hell even movie figures too. And since they're within the area, they have access to all of those beautiful third-party figures that are so much better than most of the mainline releases. So come on down and shop at INS Hobby and let them know that ShinRobjira sent you. Alrighty, back to the video. Well, that was weird. Anyway, articulation time. First up, starting with the stand, I promise I'll make this short. Swivel over here, hinge, 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 swivel over here, hinge, 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 swivel over here, hinge, 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 and of course, swivel up here at the claw. Hinge, hinge, hinge. And then, you know, this stuff. Yeah. Now, as far as Mothra herself goes, her arms can move back about that far before they start hitting over here by the wings, but they can come back around to around that point where they start hitting over there. Really not that much of a bummer as far as I'm concerned. Her chesticle arms over here can move out like so. I believe they're on ball joints, and I'm trying very much to be very delicate with these because they are very, very small. And let's see here. Can they go down? Yeah, they can go up and down like so and actually hold the pose there. So yeah, probably on a ball joint for sure. Mothra's midsection is going to be on a ball joint. So it can move in about that far and then back out about that far, accompanying, I don't know, stinging poses and flying poses. Mothra's legs can actually move in and out. Very nice. They can also kick forward about that far. They kind of stop around here, and I really don't want to push it, but they can also kick back pretty far as well. And now for the wings. The smaller pair of wings are on a hinge, so they can go up and down, up and down. And yes, of course, they can swivel like so. Of course, this is going to be somewhat limited when you have the bigger wings down, but it is possible to give these a good swivel. Do be careful with these because I have seen instances of the wings popping out. Not from the hinge, but from the ball joint that's in there, or the peg that's in there. The bigger pair of wings up here can move up and down, and as well can indeed swivel. The swivel is a nice touch, and I feel with certain poses, it'll really bring Mothra to life, you know? It's just, with my copy at least, the downside to that is when you swivel, you kind of scrape off some of the paint over there. And I believe if I get a close enough look, yeah, you can actually see some of the paint coming off right there on the hinge as well. Again, I think the swiveling at the wings was a very, very nice touch, and it does open up the possibilities for different posability options, but if the paint's gonna suffer, I'm kind of half and half on that. But since it's in such a weird little place that you're really not going to be looking at too much, as long as you're careful with it, I think you'll turn out okay. Anyway, Articulation's gonna get a solid star, and now let's put Mothra back on her stand and compare her to some other figures, shall we? Personally, I like putting Mothra on her stand from the back instead of the bottom. It just feels a lot more stable from this point. And I don't know, the big hunk of plastic coming from behind instead of directly under just looks a lot nicer. To me, at least. Just to say this now, the stand really hasn't improved much from Rodan's. While not as warped as Rodan's, this one still doesn't sit very flush. But since Mothra came with 2 more connectors over here, we can connect their stands together like so. So we can recreate the scene where Rodan attacks Mothra, and I think this segues pretty well into what I was going to talk about next, which is scale. And yeah, this seems about right to me. Granted, from scene to scene, I don't think they were really paying attention to how big the monsters actually were. I don't know, there's a couple scenes in there where things feel a little wonky. But for the most part, fam, this feels pretty much right. And in comparison to that, the wingspans between the 2 figures, oh man, they're nearly the same. Rodan is obviously much bigger, wider, longer, the whole 9 yards when it comes to his wingspan, but to see Mothra being able to fit within Rodan's wingspan is crazy. And I think that's pretty much movie accurate, but don't quote me on that. And up next is a comparison to the NECA 2019 Mothra. And right here you can already tell just how much bigger the Hiya Mothra is in comparison. But at the same time, and personally, I think when it comes to Mothra's body paint overall, I think NECA kind of takes it for me. The lighter tones, both on the ends of the wings over here, moving into the body, both match, and it really highlights and accentuates all the different details on the figure. That and just overall, I think NECA's Mothra is probably just the best looking of the lot. I mean, look at that. Hell yes. And the eyes are even too. And yes, I won't deny that both NECA and Hiya's Mothras do look rather similar to one another. I was going to say that the wings look mostly the same, but when you look at the edges of them, Hiya versus NECA, yeah, Hiyas are a bit deeper in some areas. And both pairs of wings, be it from NECA or Hiya toys, will be translucent. Look at that. Both are pretty vibrant when it comes to the translucency, except when it comes to Hiyas, once you get down to the blue, it kind of just doesn't really happen too much. Have Hiya toys made the definitive 2019 Mothra figure?
No.
I still very much am a fan of the 2019 NECA Mothra, and I don't own SHMA Mothra, thank God. But if I had to pick one out of the two articulated 2019 Mothra figures that I own, paint, detail, and articulation, yeah, I really don't know. It'd either be NECA or Hiya. Yeah. They both have their highs, they both have their lows. If they were one singular figure, then that would be the sole definitive 2019 Mothra. But anyway, let's get on over into size comparisons. Yeah, at the end of the day, this is just an upscaled and slightly upgraded NECA Mothra. And even with that being most of its sole identity, I would still say this is very much a grab. Because, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to highly articulated 2019 Mothra figures, you either have the NECA version or the SH Monster Arts version. One absolutely looks the part, but doesn't articulate too much. The other articulates much better, but looks, yeah. So between those two, I would consider Hiya Mothra a decent middle ground. Really do wish that the main wings had some bendy wire, though, just to give them a nice little curve and such. But regardless, if you can nab yourself a Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic Mothra, I would definitely say do so. Whether she goes back into stock on Big Bad Toy Store, or if you nab her from INS Hobby, whatever the price may be, I do think this is worth it, especially for those who missed out on SH Monster Arts and NECA's 2019 Mothra. This is the answer to your hopes and dreams right here. And that's it. Yet another Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic figure review under the belt. I do so hope you all enjoyed this review. Please be sure to check out INS Hobby. There will be a link to the main webpage and Hiya Toys Mothra in the description below. They were kind enough to send this figure out to me free of charge, and I really do appreciate how great they've been in communicating, letting me know when something was shipping, when it was arriving. They were great. They were fantastic. And again, I've yet to have a bad experience with their shipping, so please, give them a try. No harm in trying, right? I have been ShinRobjira, and when next we meet... Try-headed flap-flap. Unless my HLJ order shows up, to which that'll probably take over this. So, become a patron! This'll probably show up a lot sooner on Patreon.